I'm just apologizing for how much I stutter in this video. It's a lot. I hope you will persevere through it. So, as soon as I learned that I could talk about any important subject, honestly, my mind first went to that time where Europe died, and, well, kinda died, and yeah, Black Death. We're talking about the Black Death. That was awful. So it was recorded as one of the most deadliest pandemics in human history. For obvious reason, it resulted in millions of deaths all over Europe, Asia, and North Africa from about 1347 to 1351. It's kind of speculated to have been caused by a bacteria that can come in the form of the bubonic plague, which is named the Yersinia pestis. So around 700 years have gone by since this plague made its major mark of death and destruction all over Europe. Standard Friday, yet it still haunts the world as the worst case scenario from an epidemic because it was tragic. So about the bacteria real quick, because we have 4 minutes. The Yersinia pestis is a vector-borne infectious disease and usually spreads by bugs or fleas or other vermin like rats or mice or squirrels, all of those. It can be passed on directly to other people and animals through bites, although 2014 a study researched the skeletons from the Black Death, and there are theories that have been made that the plague might have mutated to be airborne around that time as well. A common held belief back then from religious people was that God was giving punishment by spreading the plague. Although some people still took the route of blaming it on the foreign ships that spread the plague to Europe in the first place, and they were wrong. About the effect of the Black Plague, there's no exact number, obviously, because this was centuries ago. For an estimate of the Middle East during this time is a death toll about a third of the population died, which seems to be the most common answer. Some, like the historian Philip de Leader, say that 45 to 50% of the European population died. Some even suggest that it could have been as much as 60% of the European population. It's not set in stone, but children were hit the hardest with the weak immune systems and them already having diseases. It did not end that well. Children and people in general in city dwellings and closed areas were more affected by the spread of the disease than, people out in the country. Socially, as I mentioned before, a lot of Christians accused Jews of poisoning public water supplies, so that really damaged their view on Jews and other religious folks that weren't Christians, basically. This rumor spread and it led to complete destruction of Jewish towns, and just caused a lot of suspicion on Christian parts. And where for most monarchs, they instituted measures that prohibited exports of foodstuff. They condemned black markets instead. Black markets still existed, but they tried. They set price controls on grain and outlawed large-scale fishing. The hardest hit places, like for example England, they couldn't buy grain from France or from grain producers because of the prohibition and because of crop failures from shortage of labor. And that became a big issue, the shortage of labor, because there was no one there to do the jobs that they needed. And Just so we're clear, the bubonic plague never really leaves. It has just resurfaced throughout history multiple times. I'm sorry, I'm like malfunctioning right now. I'm really trying my best.